What if the very thing you rely on for security is the reason your wealth never really accumulates? Most people believe that earning more through steady raises is the natural path to financial freedom. You work hard, your salary increases, your lifestyle adjusts, and everything feels like progress. On the surface, it looks responsible and stable. But over time, that same structure quietly sets the boundaries of your growth, keeping your income tied to time and your decisions tied to predictability. The salary trap. Why the system keeps you broke? We're going to unpack how the traditional paycheck model conditions you to chase increments instead of ownership, and why the rules that reward consistency often limit growth. Once you see how the system is designed, you'll start to recognize the subtle trade-offs you've been accepting without realizing it. Reason number one, your income has a ceiling. The salary system rewards consistency, but quietly limits upside. No matter how hard you work, your income is capped by a role, a band, or a budget someone else controls. Raises arrive in small increments, often tied to time served rather than value created. Over time, financial progress feels steady, but true acceleration never happens. This structure trains you to measure success in percentages instead of possibilities. A 3% raise feels like movement, even when costs rise just as fast. The system keeps you focused on maintaining position rather than expanding it. You stay productive, dependable, and replaceable all at once. When income has a ceiling, effort eventually hits diminishing returns. You can work harder, longer, and smarter, yet the result stays predictable. That predictability creates comfort, but it also creates containment. The longer you operate inside that frame, the harder it becomes to imagine income that scales independently of your time. Reason number two, taxes hit paychecks immediately. Before you ever see your paycheck, some of it is already gone. Taxes are taken out automatically, so you plan your life around what's left, not what you actually earned. That makes the biggest expense easy to overlook. Because it happens every time, it feels normal. You budget, save, and spend based on a smaller number, and adjust your lifestyle to fit it. Over time, you get used to working harder while seeing only modest gains, even though nothing seems obviously wrong. The system trains you to manage leftovers instead of questioning the setup. You focus on stretching what remains rather than changing how income is created. That keeps you organized and busy, while real leverage stays out of reach. Reason number three, spending usually rises with income. At first, earning more feels like the breakthrough. The raise comes. The promotion hits. The new salary number is looking like progress. And technically it is. But something subtle begins to happen in the background. Your lifestyle starts adjusting upward to match your earnings. The apartment upgrade feels justified. The car payment increases slightly. Dining out becomes more frequent. Vacations get a little nicer. None of it feels extreme. It feels earned. This is called lifestyle expansion, and it rarely feels reckless. The system quietly encourages it. When banks see higher income, they extend higher credit limits. When landlords see your higher pay stubs, better neighborhood options open up. When friends see your success, expectations shift. Without realizing it, your new normal costs more than your old one. The problem isn't enjoying your money. The problem is allowing every raise to disappear into permanent expenses. Because once spending rises, it rarely falls. A higher lifestyle creates higher monthly obligations. And higher obligations require continued income at that same level. Now the raise that once felt freeing becomes something you depend on. This is how people double their income, yet feel no richer than before. The gap between what you earn and what you keep stays narrow. And that gap is what builds wealth. When income rises but spending remains steady, margin expands. Margin creates options. Margin fuels investing. Margin accelerates ownership. But when spending rises in step with income, growth slows quietly. Recognizing this pattern gives you control. It allows you to enjoy progress without letting it consume your future. Income can rise. Comfort can improve. But the key is keeping the gap wide enough to build something lasting. That awareness alone puts you ahead of most people still running on autopilot. Reason number four, stability replaces true growth. When everything feels handled, there's no internal pressure to expand. The bills are covered. The account balance looks fine. Nothing feels urgent. And because nothing feels urgent, building assets feels optional. You tell yourself you'll look into rental properties later. You'll invest more seriously when you have extra. You'll start that business when work slows down. But work rarely slows down, and extra money rarely appears by accident. Comfort lowers urgency. Assets, on the other hand, require deliberate action at the beginning. Buying property means committing capital you could keep liquid. Investing consistently means directing money away from short-term enjoyment. Starting a business means accepting uncertainty and giving up free time. Each of those decisions temporarily disturbs comfort. When stability becomes the priority, that disturbance feels unnecessary. Why disrupt something that's working? Why introduce risk when life feels steady? So growth gets postponed. Years pass with reliable income and increasing experience, yet ownership barely changes. Raises improve lifestyle. Promotions add responsibility. But the core structure remains dependent on continued effort. You are maintaining stability, not expanding leverage. Assets are what separate income from constant labor. They create progress that continues in the background. Without them, stability must be protected through ongoing work, month after month. Long-term strength comes from ownership that grows beyond your direct input. Once you recognize how temporary comfort can quietly delay expansion, you begin to see stability differently. It can be a foundation for growth. It just shouldn't become a substitute for it. Reason number 5, credit covers what income can't. When your salary falls short of your desired lifestyle, there is always a backup plan. Credit cards, auto loans, payment plans, financing options that promise you can have it now and worry later. At first, it feels harmless. You tell yourself it's temporary. A small balance here, a manageable payment there. After all, you have a job. You'll cover it. But credit quietly stretches your income into the future. Instead of adjusting your lifestyle to fit your earnings, you borrow against tomorrow's paycheck. The system makes this easy. Approvals are instant. Limits increase. Offers arrive constantly. And slowly, your fixed expenses grow. Minimum payments start replacing savings contributions. Interest charges begin absorbing the raises you worked so hard to earn. The extra income you thought would move you forward now maintains debt you accumulated trying to keep up. This is where the trap tightens. Credit gives the illusion of wealth. You could drive the car. You can wear the clothes. You can live in the apartment. But ownership belongs to someone else until the balance is cleared. And most people never fully clear it. They rotate debt. They refinance. They transfer balances. The cycle continues. Meanwhile, the psychological pressure increases. You become more dependent on the paycheck because more of it is already spoken for. Credit was meant to smooth cash flow. Instead, it often expands obligations. When income can't support the lifestyle, borrowing feels like relief. In reality, it creates a deeper dependence on the very system you're trying to escape. Understanding that dynamic brings clarity. It allows you to see credit as a tool, not a lifeline. And once you see it clearly, you start making calmer, more intentional financial decisions. Reason number 6, your skills get locked to one role. At the beginning of a career, growth feels wide open. You're learning quickly. You're adapting. You're picking up new abilities because everything is unfamiliar. The range of what you can do is expanding. But over time, specialization sets in. You become very good at one specific function, inside one specific structure. Your value increases within that system. Promotions come from going deeper, not wider. You refine the same skill set again and again, becoming efficient, reliable, and predictable. And slowly, your flexibility narrows. The market begins to see you as one thing. Your resume reflects one track. Your daily responsibilities reinforce one identity. Even your confidence starts attaching to that single lane. At first, this feels like progress. Expertise is rewarded. Mastery earns higher pay. Stability improves. But there's a trade-off. When your skills are tightly connected to one role, your options depend on that role continuing to exist. If the industry shifts, if technology replaces certain functions, or if leadership changes direction, your leverage shrinks. Transitioning becomes harder because your experience is concentrated rather than diversified. Meanwhile, asset builders develop broader capabilities. They learn investing, negotiation, marketing, operations, and strategic thinking. They build skills that transfer across industries. Their knowledge compounds in multiple directions. Role-based growth often deepens income within a system. Ownership-based growth expands options beyond it. When your skills stay tied to one path, your future quietly shrinks. You might earn more money, but you have fewer ways to earn it. Over time, that narrowing limits your leverage. You depend more on one company, one title, or one industry. And when change comes, it feels threatening instead of manageable. Real security comes from having options. When your skills can transfer across roles and your income doesn't rely on a single source, your flexibility grows. You're able to pivot, adjust, and move without starting from zero. Building both depth and range keeps you valuable in more than one lane. And that flexibility is what keeps your future open, even when the system around you shifts. If you step back, a pattern starts to emerge. None of these reasons look dangerous on their own, but together, they create a structure where income stays tied to time, growth stays incremental, and ownership stays delayed. The salary trap isn't dramatic. It doesn't announce itself. It simply conditions you to optimize inside the system instead of building beyond it. The real change happens when you begin widening the gap between what you earn and what you spend, redirecting that margin toward assets, and developing skills that travel with you. That's when income stops being your only engine. This isn't about rejecting stability. It's about understanding its limits. Once you see how the structure works, you stop measuring progress by raises alone. You start measuring it by leverage, ownership, and optionality. And that awareness changes the trajectory. Because the moment you move from maintaining income to building assets, the system stops defining your ceiling.